formats and then different criteria. So
okay. All right, so we are live streaming and we'll get the recording going in a moment. If you haven't guessed yet, I'm chairing. Ooh. All right, and we are recording. So it is 7 o'clock on the dot. We can bring the meeting to order. We have received regrets from Mayor Wood, Councillors Wainman and Moses. So we do have quorum with the 5 councillors and myself here. So we can move on to the agenda. We do have an addition, item 8.17. And I do not believe there are any other additions, but I would entertain them before we move it forward. Seeing none. All right, with that, I will look for a mover of the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Devlin. And a seconder, please. Councillor Gowans. All in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Councillor Airy, I just want to check that you can hear us and that we can hear you. You can unmute.
Sorry, who were you asking?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, we got him. It was Donovan. Thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to declarations of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest. If I relate to Monday night, I believe Councillor Harder.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
conflict for 8.1.
Okay, thank you. And then I will also declare on item 8.17, which was the addition to the agenda. And when that item comes up, Councillor Miro will take the seat for me. Next up, we have delegations, presentations, or petitions. SAO Hood, have we received anything this evening?
I have not received anything.
Great, thank you. And same question to public question period.
Same answer. I have not received anything.
Thank you. And on to item 6.1, adoption of the minutes. So we'll get the minutes on the table first, and then if there's any discussion, we can have that. So I'll look for a mover of the minutes, please. By Councillor Gowans and seconded by Councillor Devlin. All right, any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none. All right, we can call to a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, so moved. Next up on the agenda is our action items list. There were a couple requests for some removals, but is there any further conversation, discussion, questions this evening? Seeing none. All right, thank you. We can move on to new business. Item 8.1, proposed amendments to the fees and charges policy. Just make note here that Councillor Harder is not participating in the discussion. He is remaining muted because he has declared conflict. And so we can then bring the item to the table. Recommendation be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby adopts the amended fees and charges policy FM 021 Schedule A as presented. May I have a mover, please?
Yep.
Moved by Councillor Airy and a seconder. Councillor Gowans, thank you. Any discussion on the fees policy? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Devlin, go ahead.
Yes, I'm just curious. The fees, especially for the Midnight Sun Complex, seem to be the exact same as 15 years ago. So I'm just wondering, is there, but inflation's also gone up on the back end. So I'm just wondering if there is opportunity to, or I just asked the question about why we've not seen any fee increases in probably about 15 years.
I'll have to ask SAO Hood to answer that question.
In the past, again, we have felt that, given the economic times within the town, and certainly in the last 5 or 6 years, with the economic times and stuff like that, we felt that, it was best to leave them where they are, so that we do have some affordable recreation and items available for it, and also to try and attract more conferences. Obviously, the last 2 years that hasn't been able to do, but again, given the cost to travel here and et cetera, it's a question of, do we leave them and have left them there at that point right now? However, should council decide that they would like to see them raised, we're more than welcome to do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, SAO Hood. Any further questions, discussion on the item? I'm seeing none. All
Do
right,
we
can
need it
call-
raised? Do we need it raised?
Oh, that's a big question. It's certainly something I think that when we have our budget session, that's a really good place where we could talk it all out, because the needs or wants or that kind of basis is definitely a bigger discussion than we could have in the next couple minutes here. But I mean, there's probably arguments on both sides for sure.
Okay,
We can call to a vote then. All in favor?
Yes.
yes,
Got it. So moved. If I can just ask folks to mute in between votes. I know it's a little bit of a hassle, but it just reduces our background noise. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 8.2, which is the approval of the quarry permit application form. Just bear with me, I'm kind of scrolling as we go. So recommendation here, be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby approves the quarry permit application form as presented. May I have a mover, please?
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Harder, and a seconder, please.
yep.
Councillor Miro. Any questions, discussion on the item? Seeing none. All right, we can call to a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you. And so moved. And on to item 8.3, the approval of the quarry permit form. So recommendation, be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby approves the quarry permit form as presented. Look for a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Gowans and a
Yep.
seconder.
Donovan.
Councillor Airy, thank you. Any questions, discussion on the item? Seeing none, we can call to a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
Thank you, so moved. And on to item 8.4, the request from the Royal Canadian Legion. So we do have a few items to consider before us. There are options for two different motions. So I think before we put a motion on the floor, a little more discussion might be appropriate, if there is any. And so council, I would open the floor to you. There was an email that came back with a few answers to the questions that we had asked Monday night. So I'll open the floor. If you'd like to speak, please just show your hand and we can hear from you. Councillor Devlin, go ahead. Councillor Miro, can I just get you to mute, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to sort of start up by saying I'm not too sure that this request actually falls within our purview, and I'll sort of get into the reasons why. I took this very seriously, and so the first thing I did was open up the bylaw policy, the lottery policy, to figure out what we're dealing with here, right? So, I open it up, and the first thing that comes up, 3.5C, it says funds raised will be used for the purpose stated and accepted on the application. So I just want to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that with my argument. So I then went through and we come up to 3.5H. And this says the proceeds from the lottery shall be dispersed either in accordance with the charter of objectives or purposes set out in the application form or in a manner requested by the licensee expressly authorized by the town. So this gives us a little flexibility and leeway. I'm thinking, okay, well, now the rules maybe aren't as solid as they are. We've got some leeway. So we continue on and we wind up hitting 4.4B3. And it says here, a licensee shall not use the proceeds from a lottery for social events or activities other than those for children, the senior citizens, or for all members of the community. So there's no carve out for 19 plus environment under the lottery bylaw. And then we fly all the way through and I thought, okay, there must be something about operations costs in there, either denying it or accepting it. So I did a whole search of the document. And the only mention of operations is way down. I'm going to find it now in 18.4. There's the sec here in 18.4, and it says lottery proceeds shall not be used to supplement any aspect of the operational or capital budgets of the institution or school. It's the only mention of operations costs there, and it's in the education section. But I sat there and went, okay, if we absolutely are not going to allow our lottery charity monies to be spent on operations for a school or an educational institution, it makes it very difficult for me to sit there and approve that for a licensed establishment, a nonprofit, but still a licensed establishment. So I'm sort of in this bit of conundrum. But then I had a couple of conversations today, and I learned that most of the money that is in the lottery account, the Legion's lottery account, wasn't earned, I suppose, underneath this policy. It was monies from Chase the Ace in times past when they weren't a part of our Inuvik policy. And in fact, I understand that the majority of the money in the bank account is from that time. So now we flip back to 3.5C, which I will get to it because these are really, really long bylaws. 3.5C, which says funds raised will be used for the purpose stated and accepted on the application. In my books, the only application that the Legion has with the town that they've signed and that we've accepted is the ones that have been since they have been included in the policy. Any monies prior to that, and as we understand it, apparently it's the majority of the monies in that account, should be not our purview. It happens to be monies that they earned under a former scheme, basically. And so I'm seeing this right now as, I'm sure administration we can figure out what monies they've earned under the policy and lock down those monies as a policy. But then on the back end, allow them to spend that other money as freely as they did prior to them being involved in the policy. I know this is as clear as mud for everyone, but I do think that this request isn't necessarily within our purview. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Devlin. SAO Hood, I see you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to throw some more mud in it. In that I just recently, it was very good, Councillor Devlin, and that as far as the correspondence with the Legion, it may not be now the Chase the Ace funds that they're looking for. So I'm just throwing some more money into that. So it could be from their Nevada ticket sales and that. So then they couldn't come up with a definitive answer for me. That was the first thing, but then they've come back and said no, but it could also be from the Nevada ticket sales from their machines.
I've been fighting for a solution
Sorry
here.
to put more mud in it, but that was.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, SAO Hood. Further questions or discussion? Councillor
Here.
Harder, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a little bit of I don't want to see us set a precedence with this. And so that's a concern to me, but at the same time, I don't want to see a local business or a non-for-profit at that fail in our community. And during this time with COVID, I'm on the fence with this one, and I don't want to see I don't want to set a precedence, but yet I'm not willing to watch a local business or non-for-profit fail. So that's just my 2 cents at the moment. So I'm just going to take it all in, and we'll see where it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about my phone going off there. Councillor Merrill, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. Have we seen the full financial statement from the Legion as where they're at, whether they have any other sources of income or any other savings they could be using?
SAO Hood?
We have not seen any financial statements from it, as our requirement there is only when it's a donation coming from the town. But no, and any financial statements we get from the lotteries is only from their lottery funds, not the actual operations of the organization or anything like that.
Okay. I mean, for the record, I am a member of the Legion. I absolutely want to see it continue, but I'm also very concerned about setting a precedent. I don't think we have all the information. And I know last week, Councillor Devlin asked if they had looked at other resources, and while they appear to have looked towards the money that the Legion as a large entity received, I'm not hearing anything about looking at other possible resources in the NWT. Have they provided any information on that?
Not to me.
Is anybody else in council aware of anywhere else they could be looking for money?
No. The email answer that was provided to us by SEL Hood was kind of a capturing of a conversation on that question from what I can remember.
Okay. Because just to clarify, if the money they raised, if it wasn't Nevada's and it wasn't Chase the Ace under the lottery license, is that their money to do with as they wish and doesn't fall into what we are responsible for?
I guess maybe I clarify, just so if the money was raised, if some of the money they want to use is from their Nevada sales, then this is why their request. If it was from the Chase the Ace money after Chase the Ace was put in the regulations, then it would qualify under this request as well. I don't know if that clarifies it.
It's very muddy, and I compliment Councillor Devon for his work there. So if it's the Nevadas, that falls under lottery licensing, is that correct?
Correct.
And if it's money they raised once they got their Chase the Ace lottery license, that also falls under the lottery bylaw, is that correct?
Correct.
And have they told us how much is lying in between that doesn't fall under the lottery bylaw?
No.
Okay. And would that amount then be theirs to spend, or do we have any say over it since it wasn't raised under a lottery bylaw?
It would be theirs to use. There was the sort of the loophole when the Chase the Ace first started. They did, I will give them credit, treat it sort of vaguely under the regulations, where there was a $30,000 limit that was in the regulation, so they capped it at that. So they were trying to follow the spirit of the regulations, but technically Chase the Ace was not included in the regulations until a few years ago. And so any money raised prior to then, in theory, kind of fell through the cracks as to use. But how they could go back and figure out that they spend what against what over what time, I think would be very, very difficult.
All right. But I guess I really understand Councillor Devlin's point about that's not our sum of money to make a decision on. And I think they need to find some way of sorting out what falls under what, because they may not need our help on this. And I too would be very worried about setting a precedent. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Miro. I guess just to add to the question then would be, SAO Hood, I hope this makes sense, but if we were to provide them with, let's say, the date that the lottery license update was completed by town council, like the day that it passed, does it make sense that they would be able to go back into their bank records to look at that date, and whatever money was there previous to that would be something that they could use for this, because after that date forward, whatever they added was lottery dollars? Because I think there's supposed to be there is a separate bank account for lotteries, right?
That's correct. Yes, we could go back and say, here's where the regulations came into play. It would just have to, hopefully, depending on their bookkeeping and where they actually put the money. But that is certainly something that we could go back to the Legion and ask them and see how much they had raised from the JCAs prior to such and such a date. And that, again, though, it could complicate because they may have used that money at the time for their building, and that money could have been used already for operations and that kind of a thing. So that's why I'm saying it could be a little difficult, but certainly not impossible to ask them at least how much money they had raised, because that shouldn't be hard to do, right?
Okay, and I'll look for council direction here, but I would think that maybe going back with this idea might be something that we would look at before saying yes or no either way, so that we really have an understanding of if it's okay with us for them to be using those dollars and they're able to figure out what that amount was, then that would be a better route than trying to, make this exception to the rule kind of thing. Councillor Gowans, go ahead.
I think given what Councillor Devlin researched and raised tonight, given the implications with the bylaw that he mentioned and he referenced, and to Councillor Harder's point, Councillor Mero's point, I think it would be helpful for us to make, I guess, a good decision if we got that clarification on that date. Because the way I read the bylaw, there's money that we can't okay for what they want to do, and there may be money that we shouldn't influence or prevent them from using if it's available. So that clarification will be very beneficial to help us make, I think, an accurate or a good decision on this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Gowans. So SAO Hood, I just need a little bit of help here. Would we defer this item then, or because I don't think we would defeat it at this point, unless that is the right pathway? I'll just look for some advice here.
No, council certainly has, what they can do is make a motion, not a resolution, but a motion to asking administration to go back, do more research on this and to find out more information, and then bring it back to council once that information is available at the next possible meeting date, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. So then I will look for a
Can
mover.
I just add something?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead, Donovan.
Can we find out how bad is it? Like they say the cold months are coming up. So will they be shutting down in 3 months, 4 months if they don't find anything? Because looks like I think they need a quick decision here. That's what I think.
Yeah, we can ask SAO Hood to ask those questions as well to just give us a better idea for the decision that has to be made. Councillor Miro?
Can we not ask them to show us their financial statement that they have no other resources before we even consider whether or not we would let them use lottery funds for this purpose?
I'll have to ask SAO Hood that question, but
That's a tricky one. Again, I'd have to look into, I guess, probably would be my answer. And the only reason I say that is depending on what the rules and regulations, if they are a registered charity, then I believe that their financials have to be available to the public, but I'd have to do some research on that. So because then anything we bring to council now becomes into the public realm.
All right, so with that discussion, I think what we need to do here is have a mover to for a motion to ask administration to go back and find that information for us, both on the financials and also on the determining that the ACE amount pre the lottery bylaw. Sorry, Stephanie, if that's very convoluted for you to try to figure out what the actual motion is. But I will need a mover of that motion, please. Moved by Councillor Gowans
I'll second
Yep.
that.
and seconded by Councillor Miro. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved. Thank you, everyone. Great discussion.
Can I just make a request, please? When you're on the
Absolutely.
phone, to mute and unmute takes about a second. So if we make sure that time is there so we can quickly do it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, so on to item 8.5, which I believe we covered on Monday, the discussion of committee structure. SAO Hood, did you have anything more for tonight on this item?
Sorry, I was just had one other thing. I don't think which item are you talking about? I apologize because I had another question being asked different way.
Oh, 8.5, the discussion of the committee structure.
I sent out to council just an item from what the previous council was given when the original discussion came up in February, and also I was reminded that in August council reviewed it and decided to continue on without the monthly committee meetings. So I just provided just some additional information of when this originally came to council to be discussed. But that's really all I have add. We did do up a revised schedule based on what we felt from the discussion on Monday night, with the meetings being ad hoc, with the exception, I believe, of the bylaw review committee.
Thank you for that update. So item 8.5 does not require a motion or resolution, but if there is more discussion of council, now would be the time before we get into volunteering ourselves for the committees themselves. I'm not seeing any. Oh, Councillor Devlin, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I said the other night that, committees are what you make of them. They can be very, very amazing tools to be able to use to get down into some granular detail, to share ideas, brainstorming, all sorts of things. So I'm a big supporter. Apologize, my dog might be barking. Big supporter of the committee structure. And when I'll be frank, when I look at the financial breakdown of the committees, which Grant sent us, it's not a scary amount. When I consider the value of committee work versus the $30,000 of cost of doing these meetings. I can understand in some cases, and perhaps last council, yeah, you just didn't feel that it was the right thing. I'd like to give it a shot though, and I'll reiterate this as I did on Monday. At least on an ad hoc basis, I do feel that they can be very, very helpful to everything. And certainly when I was a town director, I did look to my committee and got a lot of good advice and direction from it as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Devlin. Any other discussion on 8.5? See, oh, Councillor Miro, go ahead.
I would like to support what Councillor Devlin has said. I think with a new council and there's a very large number of new people, it's worthwhile having the committee meetings. And then if we decide it's not paying off, we can always go back to not having them regularly.
I just want to clarify one thing there. So Tony has said ad hoc, Alana sort of said meetings. Is everyone still okay though with waiting to really get into the guts of them until we do our strategic priorities kind of thing? Or did you want to have a couple before then?
No, I'm absolutely okay with waiting.
Okay. I see nodding heads on screen. All right, so Councillor Harder, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just gonna agree with that. No, I'm okay
Okay.
with waiting.
All right. So with that being the case, we'll move on to item 8.6. Just for these next few items, before I read out the resolution, I'm going to ask for the volunteers so that I can pencil them into the full resolution instead of stopping halfway through. So item 8.6 will be members for the administrative committee, and we're looking for 3 names here. If you'd like to raise your hand or unmute, Councillor Gowans, I have you. And 2 more, please. Councillor Devlin
Yeah,
and Councillor Airy. All right, that is 3. And of course, if at any time we have to switch things up, we can do that later. It's just important that we have these named now. So I'll go ahead with the resolution then. Be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints the following councillors to the Administration Committee for a 3-year term expiring at the end of council's term of office. Grant Gowans, Tony Devlin, and Donovan Airy. May I have a mover of the motion or of the resolution, please? And it can be someone
move
who's,
that.
okay, moved by
I'll-
Councillor Miro. Seconded by Councillor Devlin. And all in favor?
Yes.
All right, so moved. Item 8.7, appointment members to the Public Works Committee. Again, I believe we're looking for 3 names.
Yeah, I'll go on that. Jesse Harder. Councillor
Harder. Councillor Gowan.
I'll go on that.
All right, and Councillor Airy. Thank you. So recommendation, be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints the following councillors to the Public Works Committee for a 3-year term expiring at the end of council's term of office. Jesse Harder, Grant Gowans, and Donovan Airy. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gowans.
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Harder. All in favor?
Yes.
Donovan and Jesse, can you just say what you think?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right. All right, now on to the Recreation Parks and Library Advisory Committee. This is a single name. If there's anyone who would like to put their name forward.
It's Alana. I'm interested in this one, but Deputy Mayor Kilkowski, are you also not interested?
I am not.
You're not. Then I am interested.
And so is Councillor Devlin. Ooh. All right.
It's the pit of decision.
Right. SAO Hood, I'm not sure how what do we do here? Do we name 2 then, or?
No, council has to decide. You either have to do it via a vote, whether it be a secret ballot, which we could probably try and do quickly do a poll, or you can do it just by show of hands or whatever council does, but council has to decide. Or under the terms of the committee, I believe there is just one person from the town can do it. If somebody else wants to sit on the committee, and it happens on others, especially, for example, the lottery committee, councillors can sit on these committees as a member of the public. there's nothing stopping you. Just that's not really, it's not a conflict of interest or anything like that. You can sit on the committee as a member of the public.
It's Councillor Miro. I'm more than willing to sit as a member of the public.
All right, that simplifies things then. So, Councillor Devlin, you. Resolution, be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council here appoints the following councillor to the Recreation, Parks and Library Advisory Committee for a 3-year term expiring at the end of council's term of office. Tony Devlin. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gowans. And a seconder, please.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Miro. And all in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. In unison. All right, now on to the Lottery Committee. Here
I would
again,
like to
it's
see- Okay, sorry.
one name.
I'm very eager about this one. I would like to sit on this one, please.
Great, thank you, Councillor Miro. Are there any other persons interested? Seeing none. All right, resolution. Be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints Alana Miro to the Lottery Committee for a 3-year term expiring at the end of council's term of office. May I have a mover, please?
Mover.
Moved by Councillor Airy enthusiastically and seconded by Councillor Devlin. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved. All right, on to the Bylaw Committee. This one again will be 3 names. And I would like to put my name forward for this one. And Councillor Gowans. And do we have a third interested party?
I would be willing to sit on this one.
Okay. SEO Hood, I see you have your hand raised.
So I just wanted to mention with this committee, just because everybody has full-time job, quite often we meet during the day for this committee and it can go for 2 or 3 hours, just so everybody's aware.
Thank you, SEO Hood, for reminding me of that. I actually will need to withdraw my name because I work during the day, so I don't have that time, unfortunately. So I'd like to withdraw my name, please.
I will
Thank you.
need to withdraw my name. I'll need to withdraw as well, unless this is an after-work committee. I can't do it.
Okay. I guess the question then arises, SEO Hood, is there any opportunity to move it outside of the workday?
Well, we could try and hold it. One of the reasons we've done it in the day is sometimes because of the length and also because quite often we have our legal counsel present when we're discussing the bylaws. However, and we have found it quite good to have them as part of the discussion. Then we're not going back and forth and waiting on it. Nothing says that we can't have it in a range, and if council wants, I can check with our legal counsel to see what options we have with them to join. There's no meeting scheduled between now and the first one that's scheduled in January. So we certainly have time we can make a motion, or just don't even have to make a motion. I think you can just say we bring it back to the next meeting with more information on it.
Okay.
And that way, to allow others to be able to attend. The other option is weekends. Again, it's just a question of how we want to do it. But these ones typically, the other ones, the Parks and Recreation Board, they meet after work and can go on for a couple hours. This one can go 2 or 3 hours. It's just a question of coordinating with the lawyers, and that if we continue to want to have the lawyers present.
I guess the other question would be if we could pare it down to a 1 hour meeting, question to Grant and Alana, would you be able to do a lunchtime meeting in that scenario?
I could, but if it, my preference, if given what SEO had just mentioned, and I think, given we're talking about bylaws which affect our community residents, I think I'd prefer to give it the full time. And to SEO Hood's point about legal counsel, I'd rather have them there than do the paper chase or the email chase back and forth. So
Okay.
I don't know if lunch hour will be sufficient to warrant the review that's necessary.
Councillor Merrill, you go ahead.
I agree with everything Councillor Gowan just said. I think this one's too important to try to rush. So yeah, I unless it's after hours on a weekend, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay, so that also being said, we do have 3 other councillors here. Would any of you be able to do it on a weekday? Or willing?
I may. I know my employer offers civic leave. I'd have to look into it, which would qualify to allow me to take an hour or 2 off in the daytime. So I'd have to look into it. But we do have some capacity for that. But it's whether or not I have interest in actually sitting on the bylaw review committee as well. So I prefer to see if our suggestion of evenings or weekends or whatever is possible before making this commitment. But if necessary, I may have a little give on that end.
Just also want to be mindful of staff time too, but of course, I think maybe this one it sounds like we all need to assess it, kind of coming from always. So maybe we could again defer this item to either the next meeting, defer the naming, and that way some more information can come back. So I believe I need a motion to send it back to administration for more information. Made by Councillor Gowans.
Second by Airy.
Thank you, Donovan. Seconded by Councillor Airy. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved. Thank you. All right, 8.11 is the appointment of members to the Economic Development Committee. Sorry, quick scroll here. And we are looking for 3 names here as well. Do we have anyone who?
I have a question.
Yep.
The councillors that aren't present, have they expressed any interest in being on any of the committees?
I have not heard an expression. I can't speak with Councillor Moses. I know Councillor Wayman has in the past shown a preference just due to work commitments and stuff like that, and the type of work he's in. It's even after hours and stuff like that. It's very difficult. Has expressed preference not to be on the committees.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that nobody had actually said they were willing. We just weren't hearing from them. Thank you.
Thank you for checking that. So we'll come back to the Economic Development Committee. Volunteers. Councillors Gowans and Devlin. And Harder.
Yes.
All right. So resolution, be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints the following councillors to the Economic Development Committee for a 3-year term expiring at the end of council's term of office. Grant Gowans, Tony Devlin, and Jesse Harder. May I have a mover, please?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we'll move it by Councillor Miro.
Second by Airy.
Second by Councillor Airy. And all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, so moved. Now on to the appointment of members for the naming committee. And there are 3 names here. I do believe this is going to be an important committee in the coming year or so. We do have a request at the town for a renaming of one street, and I think there might be some opportunities there for council as well. So certainly it will be a board that will be active in the next while. I believe they're slated for 2 meetings a year. And it will be a mix of council and residents. So do we have any volunteers for the naming committee?
I'm interested in this one, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was part of the naming committee for East 3 School, so I don't know if you want me on the committee or not, but I'm perfectly willing to put my name forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And if there aren't any others, I am also interested, so I will just go ahead and put my name down. All right, so resolution that be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints the following councillors to the naming committee for a 3-year term expiring at the end of council's term of office. Alana Miro, Tony Devlin, and Natasha Kulikowski. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gowans. Looks like it's going to be seconded.
Second by Ari.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. And next up is the schedule, which did come out in an email with an update to remove the dates and put in the ad hocs where appropriate. So we'll get it on the floor and then we can discuss. Resolution, be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby approves the 2022 council and committee meeting schedule as presented. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Devlin. Seconder, please. Anybody?
Yeah.
Moved by, seconded by Councillor Airy. All right, open for discussion if there's any to be had. Councillor Gowans, go ahead.
I'm just looking at something that SAO had just mentioned a little, there's no council meetings in December. That's my understanding. But I'm looking at the schedule and it has 2 dates in December for council meetings and committee of the whole meetings. So I'm just a bit confused.
Oh, so we do have meetings in December. Generally what happens is we have the first set and then the second set council does a resolution to cancel because they're usually, like you can see next year, that's on the week of Christmas.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing. See the dark or the light blue ones in July and in August. Generally what happens is that council puts forward a resolution to say that we're going to cancel those meetings because usually no one's here and so you can't reach quorum, things like that. But we do, this is of course for 2022, we do have meetings in December still too, 1 set of meetings anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just I guess on the Town of Inuvik website, it notes that there's no meetings in December, July, and August.
Oh, okay.
So maybe want
It's
to
just
check
an
that.
update. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right.
Uh,
And go ahead.
So because that's what I noticed, and I was just a bit confused when I saw them on the schedule. So
Thank you. SAO Hood, you have your hand raised?
So I just wanted to, under the CTV Act, we must have a regular council meeting, not necessarily committee of the whole, but we must have a regular council meeting, at least 1 every month. So, and
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? And of course, if you do happen to notice, like one of the dates ends up being on a stat or something, just email SAO Hood or the mayor and let them know that you noticed it and they can get it fixed up right away for us. If it's like a major change that's going to happen, we'll have to repass it. But sometimes, you know, the little box is just on the wrong spot or whatever. So, but if it looks good to all of you, I believe we can call to a vote. Yes, we had movers. So all in favor?
Yeah,
Yep.
Oops.
Yes.
So moved. Thanks, Jesse. And then 8.14, we did have a couple volunteers for this one on Monday night. And so be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints the following councillors to the Holiday Light Up and Decorating Contest Judging Committee for a 3-year term expiring at the end of council's term of office. Those are Jesse Harder and Donovan Airy. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gowan, seconded
I would
by
very much like to second that.
Alana stole it out from
Don-
under you,
Don
Tony.
go
All
with
right.
you. That's right.
And all in favor?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Thank you. So moved. Next up, we have the appointment of a member for the Partners for Climate Protection Program. And this is an individual to work alongside Kessel Joseph to represent the town at this FCM group. And so do we have a volunteer who is interested? Oh, SAO, do you have your hand raised? Just before.
Sure, I just wanted to go back to Councillor Gowan's about the council meetings. It is actually on the website. It's not on the events calendar. You have to go under Town Hall council meetings, and it does show the December meetings there. So it is actually on the website.
Okay, thank you. All right, so do we have a volunteer for the PCP program? Councillor Gowans? All right, so be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints Grant Gowans to represent the town of Inuvik in the Partners for Climate Protection Program. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Devlin?
Second by Airy.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So moved. Now on to 8.16, the town of Inuvik vaccination policy. We have had some good discussion here. On Monday night, we certainly did. I know that council has received 4 emails from residents about this item. I would like to just clarify one item first, that the item before us tonight is what our request is to administration on developing a policy. Tonight is not the final be all end all of an approval or non-approval of that policy. But certainly encourage residents, if they want to send emails in and to be part of that decision-making process with council, we absolutely accept it. All of our emails are on the website. Basically, you can put any of our first initial last name and add Inuvik and you'll find us. But yeah, I appreciate that. We have received some public information as well. So we have a few options before us on this item. Whether it's just town facilities, whether it's employees of contractors, how that affects folks. There is also opportunity to, because we are missing some counselors, do you want to defer for now? It is open. I don't want to read any resolutions because we'll have to come to an agreement on which resolution we want to move forward and the wording of that, but certainly open to discussion at this point again. Councillor Gowans, go ahead.
Yeah, I know given the gravity of this and the implications of this, and the scope of it, I think it's only fair that we have the discussion with a full quorum with all the councillors present, because they may get asked questions as well from the public. And if we don't have a full discussion, we make a decision without keeping them involved and keeping them informed. It puts them at a bit of a disadvantage, and I don't think it's fair to to put them in that kind of situation.
Thank you. Councillor Miro?
I don't think we can wait for those who aren't at the table to be here. People are able to call into meetings like many of us are doing right now. And if we leave this until we have everybody, that could be quite a length of period of time.
All right, thank you, Councillor Miro. Any other discussion on this item? Councillor Harder, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, no, I think that we should defer this. We need more input from the community to make a decision of this scale. I don't know about any of you, but I've gotten numerous phone calls over the past few days regarding this vaccination policy. And this is a pretty difficult position that we've been asked to be put into. And I feel that, you know, I've spoken to both mandate supporters and non-mandate supporters. And, you know, I'm not taking this decision lightly. And I feel that we do need more time to discuss this with the community. And I think that we should defer this to the next council meeting and possibly have a public forum. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Harder. So, I mean, I totally hear what you're saying. And I just want to reiterate again that this is not the final decision on having a vaccine policy. It's asking administration to do the work to develop one. Whether, I mean, the decision comes later, whether to actually enforce it or to put it in place or not, and that is council's decision to make. But I think that in order to make that well-rounded decision, we need to make a decision likely tonight on at least what direction administration should go, because it is a lot of work on administration. I know that they've done a lot of work already. Our directors have met a couple of times with SAO Hood, and they've had good discussions about, you know, how things could or should or might, or, you know, all of those different scenarios. And so while I agree that it's a big discussion to have and that we want to hear a lot from the public, we need to give some direction to administration on on at least how to develop something that then we can discuss implementing or not. So I hope that makes sense. So really the question here is, does council want to see something that is just about visitors to facilities? Is it about all workers and contractors? Is it every person that enters every place, whether you're a visitor, a worker, or a contractor? All of those things. So I know it is a difficult one, but we do have to give some direction here. So Councillor Gowans, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps I was jumping the gun a bit there, but yeah, I think on the issue as a council as a whole, you know, more minds are better than less. I do take Councillor Miro's point about the fact that, you know, we can't wait forever to move things forward. But I also appreciate Councillor Harder's point, given the gravity of the subject, the issue, and the implications, trying to find the balance, I guess you could say. If it's a question of policy, I would say let's look at all angles of a policy, because I think there's going to be a lot of different implications on the policy, where it goes, and if it's implemented. So.
Thank you, Councillor Gowans. Councillor Devlin, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got some thoughts about this for sure. But I hope that we all realize that what Deputy Mayor was just asking it's actually a pretty simple request. The administration's given us a very detailed list of sample policies, a whole bunch of them. And if you go through them, they have every bit of information in those columns. They're great. And they really give us sort of a very comprehensive overview of what other municipalities and jurisdictions are doing. And I am a person that, well, certainly we can go through this line by line. I'm also a person that says, hey, if you don't need to reinvent a wheel, as well. I reviewed all the policies today, and I've got my favorites or this or that. And certainly, I think that's a discussion to be had with us. Is maybe preferences on policy to be able to give administration that direction that Deputy Mayor is speaking of, to at least start developing. Once we see the policy that comes out of our suggested direction, we can then make some pretty hefty decisions on whether we accept it, whether we want to make changes to it. And in that period, we will have plenty of opportunity in this interim period to meet with constituents, to take our phone calls and receive our emails. So I think to Deputy Mayor's point, it is critical that we can come up with at least one of the options that has been presented to us in the administration briefing note. Yeah, I probably got a lot more to say on this, but I'll hold that right now, and perhaps I'll return in a little bit. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devlin. Councillor Airy, anything to add here?
Nope, just taking it all in.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miro, same question.
Well, I think we need to make a decision with regarding what we're asking the administration to do. Otherwise, we're just stalling the whole process. And that's what these two resolutions are, or three resolutions, that they simply are the two, whichever. I'm very mixed up here at the moment looking at all this. We need to give them direction on what it is they're researching so that we can make an actual decision.
That's right. Yeah, Councillor Devlin, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll tell you guys what I'm feeling. We might as well get it started, right? So today I learned. That's a very famous social media expression. Today I learned. Well, today I learned that in July of 1928, down the road, Fort McPherson, Northwest Territories, 31 Gwich'in passed away due to influenza. 31 in 31 days. So a person a day in Fort McPherson, 1928. Apparently, the population of McPherson around that time was around 300. So just down our road, we lost 1 out of 10 to the influenza epidemic. And many of our citizens here in our community are related to those that passed away. And in fact, there are 5 Gwich'in that are alive today that were around in Fort McPherson in 1928. I only learned this today. I spoke with a lot of people where I work and in other places to sort of get some input and some, just to be able to do some due diligence, to be able to make some informed decisions. This has been eating me up. It really has. I've got my own personal thoughts, but I also have a community hat to wear. So it's been a fight of conscience constantly. But when I think about what happened to Fort McPherson, and I think that this was a disease brought in to the community, I draw some comparisons to this one, and I understand I'm not trying to make a direct comparison to the two, but I am one of these people that says never forget. Our community, our region has dealt with this in the past, in the relatively recent past. There's an old expression: those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So to this end, I am very comfortable with the GNWT policy as far as employees. That gives an option to those that are unvaccinated to have triple testing and PPE, some PPE restrictions, but without loss of a job. And I think that's a sensible policy. And that's the one, when I reviewed them all, was the one that I felt I preferred. On the visitors to the facility, I am actually very excited about the LMI policy and feel that's the one that I would like to recommend here. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devlin. Is anyone else prepared to speak at this time? Councillor Harder, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Councillor Devlin. I agree with your GNWC mandate on that one. But I also think that the community of Inuvik, we've done a great job of implementing the procedures that we have in place already for visitors that enter into the town public taxpayer-based facilities. And we have to, I think, I personally, I feel that I'd make a motion for the vaccination policy for employees and contractors do not have to be vaccinated to follow the criteria. That's my motion on that end. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Miro and then Councillor Gowans.
So I'd like to point out that being vaccinated doesn't prevent you from getting COVID-19. You'll probably get a less serious case. So if we have our staff vaccinated, but visitors don't have to show they're vaccinated, we are actually creating all the grounds you need for an outbreak. I think, as well as what Councillor Devlin has said, we need to go with the GNWT policy for staff and contractors, and then go with the visitors policy that Yellowknife has come up with. You can't be too careful when you're dealing with a pandemic. And when we look at the number that people have died, not just in the Northwest Territories, but other regions of Canada and the country as a whole, this is not something that we can be gentle about. And the only way you stop a pandemic is you either have a lot of vaccinations or you potentially have a lot of people get very sick and or die. So I think we need to be looking at policies for everybody, for workers, for contractors, for visitors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miro. Councillor Gowans, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of feel I'm in alignment with Councillor Devlin and Councillor Merrill on this issue when it comes to the policy. I do take Councillor Harder's point about the proactiveness that our residents have done. And I agree that our Inuvik residents have been very proactive, very careful, and very safe. The thing that scares me with this virus is how quickly and how fast it can spread once it gets a foothold in the community. And that's why I think we have to be very, very cautious, very comprehensive, so that we make sure it doesn't get a foothold in our community. We have a lot of elders in our community, in the Inuvialuit and Gwich'in, non-Indigenous. And the reality is this virus reacts to everybody differently. And whether you're healthy or you're not healthy, underlying conditions or no underlying conditions, we just really don't know until someone gets it. And it's asymptomatic. So people can be walking around who come to our community who may have been tested negative. They have no symptoms, but they're a possible carrier, and they could give it to someone else even if they have no intentions of doing so. So I think we can't let it get a foothold in our community. And unfortunately, things are not 100%. And sometimes it just takes one person to come to Inuvik, and all of a sudden we get the spike. And that scares me, to be honest.
Thank you, Councillor Gowans. I just want to note that we lost Councillor Harder there for a minute, but he is back. Okay, SEO Hood.
Sorry, I want to thank council, from an administration point of view, because we obviously struggling even with us. And I just want to point out, and this is where it could get, how do I say it, difficult, is from what I'm hearing, if we have a policy that I support either way, but it's of employees not having to be vaccinated to work in a town facility, yet visitors have to be vaccinated to come into the facility. Are we doing a double standard there? That's the only concern I want to raise and for council when you're discussing it.
Can you explain the double standard?
Certainly. So I'll take an example of, let's say myself. I and this is a thing, you have worker, well, let's say you have a worker who is non-vaccinated, works at the Midnight Sun Complex. That person goes to work and works and wears the proper PPE. We go through all the testing and stuff like that. However, if that person is coming to visit as a member of the public, if you have a vaccination policy, visitors have to be vaccinated, then that person would not be allowed in. Does that kind of see where I'm getting at on that? So that's something that has to be sort of thought out of how you go about it and how you would solve it. I'll be honest, from an administration point of view, it'd be very difficult. I think you have to look at, I think many jurisdictions are actually rethinking their policies now. That I think it came out with, certainly in the South. They've, and again, that may be a bad example in some ways, but a lot of the places are coming where it's restaurants and individual businesses can develop their own policy. I know you can go to grocery stores and in a jurisdiction I went to, we could go into a grocery store. You had to wear a mask, but you could go into a grocery store, nothing but vaccinated. If I wanted to go to eat at a restaurant, I had to show vaccination, that I was vaccinated. So, but I just want to make the point that you have to be very careful on how the two, if you have two separate policies and that making sure that they coordinate with each other, so to speak. I'm sorry, I kind of went on a little longer than I hoped.
Oh, thank you for the explanation. Councillor Gowans?
I guess to that point, SEO Hood, can city employees, I don't think is there any option to work from home if they're not vaccinated for some of the staff?
Due to the nature of our business, very, very few. There may be maybe 3 or 4 possibly, but just for the nature of our business, it's very difficult.
And Councillor Devlin?
Obviously, without naming names, are you able to at least let us know how many staff right now? Because the policy or the backgrounder as it's laid out suggests that new hires going forward would be required to be vaccinated. That's one of the suggestions there. So again, without delving into any confidentialities or anything like that, is there a generic number that you can provide? Are we dealing with a big percentage of our staff? And just what's the risk to us, basically?
I would say I would put it in the less than 5 of full-time employees. Casuals, maybe a couple more. Again, we don't have that number because we haven't asked, are you vaccinated?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so all that being said, I mean, I've heard of at least 2 or 3 folks say they want to look along the lines of GNWT for staff and contractors and look along the lines of YK for visitors. And I think I asked the question on Monday, but Grant, how is Yellowknife dealing with their employees then if their visitors have to be vaccinated?
They haven't developed a policy yet to how that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, they've had a lot of things going on this week with the referendum and stuff like that. So my contacts have been a little busy, unfortunately.
All right. Councillor Miro, go ahead.
I noticed in one of the letters that was sent, the person was referring to public spaces and vaccination required, but we're only referring to that as within town facilities. Am I correct?
I believe it's only indoor town facilities where there's an entire section about how the pavilion becomes an outdoor space in the summertime and things like that. So
That clarifies it. Yes. So we're not. I think there might be some misunderstanding for a few people that I've heard from where they think we're basically putting in a policy no matter where you are in Inuvik. That's not the case. People working for the town but also that if you're coming into a town facility, that's where the policy applies. Correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Devlin.
Yeah, I think we also need to consider, especially with our future conferencing industry and stuff like this, the 25-100 rule right now. You know, if you're having unvaccinated people, you're very limited. So I'll give you an example. If the Gwich'in Tribal Council wanted to rent meeting space and have a meeting for 15 people, and this is in February when the pool's open again, we've got 8 to 10 staff in the building. We've got 15 people upstairs and a couple of people go to the fitness center. We're locked out. I mean, at some point, we're going to have to start turning away people as well. And I think that's a consideration, at least in this whole thing. And I know that, for instance, for events like the craft fair coming up this weekend, it's a GNAP event. They're going to be controlling the door, and they've made the decision to have vaccinated people. But for general use of the building, that's still a pretty hard restriction of 25 for the entire building. So
I just want to stop you there. The way that Director Selmayr has been working with public health is actually that each usable section has been its own 25 allotment or a number allotment. So for example, if you're in the community hall, that is a 25, probably minus a staff. So yeah. And Louise, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand so far that has been approved by public health so that when you do have the different sections, you are able to have those meetings, and your staff doesn't take up half of what a meeting could or would be. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you're correct in that right now for the hall, we have been approved for 40. And that's in the October 22nd public health order. And the only reason that we're held at 40 is because we can social distance 40 and we still have to have everybody masked. If we do pass a policy, and this is a mixed, no, you don't have to be vaccinated for us to have that approval. But if we do go with a vaccination policy, we can reapply and increase our number to, we would probably say for this type of function, we want 100. For this type of function, we want 150. And it's very likely that we will get approvals for that. So then groups moving forward, groups would not have to apply for a variance. If we had the hall set at 150, anybody wanting more than 150 would have to apply for a variance, but anybody at the 150 or less would not have to go for an exemption because we would already be approved. So it would cut down a lot of work for some of our rental groups that way and whatnot. But right now we're at 40 in the hall and 25 pending setups in the various, like the Sundog room, we've set it at 12 because that's social distance. The community lounge, we've set at 20 because that's social distance, but it still falls in under the 25 that the order states.
Councillor Devlin, go ahead. Thank you, Lise.
yeah, thank you, Director Selmayr. That was great, and I'm very excited to hear that that we can actually. I was always a little confused about the policy of 25 in a giant building like that. So I really appreciate the fact that you've done some work and managed to sort of reapply and get those numbers there. This brings up another very interesting point, and that's revenues to the town, programming, recreational programming in our building. To be frank, having a vaccination policy opens all that up. We can start getting some of those things going again. And there's all sorts of things that you can weigh in a society, everything from freedom to bottom line implications. But I'm also a big believer in recreation assists with health and wellness, and the overall cost of health and wellness can always be reduced through things. So I just, keeping that in mind, that things like vaccination policy would allow us to start, not be as open as we might have been 4 or 5 years ago, but certainly well on our road to whatever form of normalcy is. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so a decision is before us. the recommendations as they're written are, of course, editable. We can do whatever we need to them. The first one, as it's written, suggests that a policy be developed to where visitors to town facilities, excluding outdoor facilities, must be vaccinated. Second item, as it's written right now, would be that employees and contractors must be vaccinated to work for the town. The third one indicates clearly that they would not have to be vaccinated. After listening to the conversations that we've had tonight and some of the information that's been available from SAO Hood and from some of the other communities, I would just like to throw out there that maybe something similar to the item number 1 would be where to start. And as other communities are doing, maybe hold off a couple weeks on the employee one, or are we asking for admin to also come up with an employee one at the same time? We've been chatting on this subject for a little while, so I think it's time to bring it back around and kind of make some direction here. Of course, if there is more discussion, that is welcome. But we should kind of hammer out what it is we want to move forward with tonight. Councillor Gowans, go ahead.
I think it doesn't make sense for me to have our town administration work on one policy for employees and contractors, and then we go back to them in a week or two, say, okay, by the way, work on the next policy for visitors. I don't think it's a fair delegation of tasks. I'd rather just take the time to get the right resolution so that they can work on both sides of that coin if it's possible at the same time.
Thank you for that. So, I mean, the other option is that we can work a couple recommendations into one. Something could be like visitors must be vaccinated, or visitors, workers, and contractors. I guess, I mean, it's really right now it's gonna come down to whether the request is for vaccinated or not. And if there are exemptions, I mean, of course, the exemptions that are followed by the, I think probably the GNWT would be somewhere that we would follow along those lines where, you know, there's limited exceptions, but there are some. So I feel like I'm leading the meeting again, and I'm not supposed to be doing that. So please take over, folks.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
But we're only asking council, we're only asking administration to take this and look at the options. Is that correct?
We're asking them to actually make the policy. So
right, then we then have to pass it at a later date. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think we should sweat this as much as we are, because we need the information to make an informed decision. So I think what we should be asking the administration to do is look at the vaccination policy for visitors, for staff, and for contractors. They've already started to lay it out. They can work on that. Then when we come back to actually make an actual decision, we should have all or most of the information we need.
Thank you, Councillor Mayo. Councillor Devlin. Oh, Councillor Airy, and then Councillor Devlin.
After listening to everyone, I think if we're moving forward with a vaccination, I think it should be for everyone. It's just going on what Grant said. The employee can go to work without vaccination, and then we can't let him in when he's coming to the complex as a visitor. So I think we got to look at for everyone for the vaccination if we're going to vote on for the vaccination.
Thank you. Councillor Devlin? Oh, you're good. Okay. All right. So I need some sort of resolution or motion here. Councillor Devlin, go ahead.
All right, I will make the motion. I will make a motion to have administration develop a vaccination policy. And I want to add here modeled on the GNWT and Yellowknife sample policies, whereby visitors to town, employees and contractors to town facilities, excluding outdoor facilities, must be vaccinated.
Alrighty. So that is on the table, moved by Councillor Devlin. Do we have a seconder?
Yep.
Councillor Airy. And the motion is open for discussion if there is further discussion. Gowans, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the consensus was looking at those two policies as templates, so it's in the motion. Would that preclude the town staff from looking at all the models, all the templates to develop the policy?
I don't believe so. I guess we'll have to check with SEO Hood to make sure that it's not a limiting. But we do have the word modeled in there, so maybe SEO Hood, if you can just clarify there.
I guess basically, we can come back with 5 different policies and you can sort of pick and choose based on different criteria. And our reasoning was here is maybe try to get a sense of what direction you wanted to go, which we have a little bit, but nothing precludes us from, or council from asking us to come back with, okay, what would a policy look like and how would it read for this, based on the GNWT one, if it was everybody had to be vaccinated on the facility, and even those you can adjust. For example, you could put something in about first responders coming into the facility. Theoretically, you would think they would be vaccinated, but it's a free choice, and so therefore they've made that choice. Now, is that precluding if I had an issue with the Midnight Sun Complex and I had a first responder come there and we say, oh, before you can go check that person or whatever it is, I need to see your vaccination policy. To me, that's an issue as well. So I would like to see, you could put, if you want to call it, certain exceptions in exceptional circumstances type thing as well in there that we could look at. But we can bring 6 policies you can pick or combine and say, hey, no, we like part of this, not part of that. And we sort of could have done that before, but administration felt we wanted to maybe get some direction, and so we didn't spin our wheels going one way on something and knowing that was the wrong direction. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does, SEO Hood. I guess kind of where I'm coming from with the question was, I think other jurisdictions have tried to take a run at this, take a crack at this issue. So I'm just thinking the more of a pool that the town staff can sample from to kind of address this issue and bring something back to town council, it might be a little more comprehensive and a stronger first crack at the issue. So.
Thank you. Councillor Harder, go ahead.
Yes. Speaking to that issue, I think that we need to take another look at doing testing for town employees, because I know that there are a few employees there that are unvaccinated, and at the end of the day, this comes down to them being able to take care of their families and work. And I think that they should have the option to do testing. And if they can't come into the facility on their own time, then so be it. But we're talking about their livelihood here, so I think we need to take a look at that and implement that as well.
Yeah, I think by having it based kind of on the GNWT and the Yellowknife examples, you kind of cover that, because the GNWT one does have the testing and then the PPE requirements and all that sort of thing, right? So if that's the way we're looking at it, asking administration to look at it, then I think you kind of cover those bases. Now, of course, this is going to come back when they have it put together, and we'll get to review it again and again. I mean, we can go through the entire thing and really, put your teeth in it. But certainly, I think giving the direction, like Grant said, he was, they didn't want to spin one way if council was spinning another way. So Definitely appreciate all the conversation. Councillor Miro, you were unmuted for a moment there. Did you have something to add?
We need to stop trying to sort this out. That's the staff
Yep.
job. They're asking us, what are we asking them to do? So I think that's what we should be making a motion on, or a resolution on.
Yep, thank you. So we do have a resolution on the table. Was made by Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Airy. Motion was that administration develop a vaccine policy modeled on the GNWT and Yellowknife examples, whereby visitors, contractors, and workers must be vaccinated. All right, so it's on the table. We can call to a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Councillors Harder and Airy, I need to hear from you.
Yep.
You're in favor. If you're not in favor, that's just let me know that.
Yeah, I'm not in favor.
Motion passes. So we will have the policy come back from administration at a later date. And now we can move on to item 8.17, which is the item that I declared on. I am wondering if I need to declare because it's a committee appointment, but I'm going to anyway, because when in doubt, declare. So I will hand the chair over to Councillor Miro. The request for council decision was in the email this afternoon. I just want to confirm that you have that, Alana. And you are muted if you are speaking.
I've muted and unmuted so often, I've totally lost track of when I'm muted. I'm not seeing it, but also if this is simply a council appointment, I don't think you're in a conflict. None of the rest of us are in a conflict for the ones that we just chose to go on.
Yeah.
SAO Hood,
It's,
maybe SAO
I mean,
Hood
there's
could
no
tell us.
monetary involvement or anything. So.
Yeah, I honestly don't think you need to vacate the chair. If anybody thinks otherwise, maybe they could speak up.
No one seems, okay, then I will go ahead and find it. All right. So motion is, be it resolved, Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints Councillor Natasha Kulikowski as a representative from the town of Inuvik to the Internet Exchange Society. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gowans.
Airy
Seconded.
second.
Seconded by Councillor Airy. All in favor?
Yes.
Yep.
Grant. Tony's hand's gonna be up. There we go. All right, so moved. And on to, oh, now I'm on the wrong thing, sorry. The annual borrowing bylaw for the corporate credit card. So recommendation that a Inuvik Town Council hereby gives third and final reading to bylaw 2674 BORR 21, a bylaw to provide for the borrowing of $250,000 during 2022. May I have a mover, please?
I'll make that motion.
By Councillor Miro and a seconder. Councillor Devlin. Any questions or comments on the item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Thank you. And on to item 9.2. The annual borrowing bylaw for the municipal line of credit. We do have second and third reading to do on this one. Recommendation is that Inuvik Town Council hereby gives second reading to bylaw 2675 BORR 21, a bylaw to provide for the borrowing of $1.5 million during 2022. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gowans and seconded by Councillor Devlin. Questions or comments on second reading? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Thank you. So moved. And on to 9 point, oh, sorry, just about skipped it again. Third and final reading. Recommendation that Inuvik Town Council hereby gives third and final reading to bylaw 2675 BORR21, a bylaw to provide for the borrowing of $1.5 million during 2022. May I have a mover, please?
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Miro and a seconder.
Second by Ari.
Moved by Councillor Airy. Any questions or comments on third reading? Seeing none, we'll bring to a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
You, so moved. And next up, 9.3, the Quarry Bylaw. We do have first and second reading of this item. So be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby approves first reading to bylaw, hereby gives first reading to bylaw 2676 GEN21, the Quarry Bylaw. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gowans and a seconder.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Miro. Any questions or comments on this first reading? Seeing none. All right, we'll call to a vote. All in favor?
Yep.
Yes.
So moved. Thank you. And on to second reading. Be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby gives second reading to bylaw 2676 GEN21, the Quarry Bylaw. May I have a mover for second reading, please?
Ari.
Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Airy. Questions or comments on second reading? Seeing none, we can call to a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
So, thank you. So moved. Next up, under item number 10, we do not have any department head reports this evening. Those should be on the next meeting. Under information items, we had the strategic priorities chart, which is due for an update, but we know we'll be attacking that come February. So on to item number 12, the council concerns. Were there any concerns this evening? Seeing and hearing none. All right, we do not have in camera this evening, so we can move to adjournment. I'll look for a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Gowans and a seconder.
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Harder, thank you. And all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Very much so.
All right, thank you everyone for your time this evening and for the great discussion. We will chat
thanks,
soon.
everyone.